I come here since the 80s. My favorite place to go. Even when I don't buy any. And I discovered they have beautiful jewelry, very cheap.
Ah, yeah?
Yeah.
It's even bigger than before, actually, after this entire market.
Yeah. No, maybe.
There's more and more stuff.
And they have more and more, this food, which they didn't have. Originally, it was literally vegetables.
Yes. I didn't realize there were so many of those tables, like oyster and white wine at like 10 in the morning.
What I record most everything on.
Okay.
And it seems that you also do most everything from a backpack too. You don't have a lot of equipment that you work with.
Very reduced. You good there? You don't want to here and move it? No, that's right.
I think this is okay.
Okay.
No,
I have it's going to be terrible if I speak. And it I do have a very reduced equipment for me. It's always been my way to live even more in the past years was to reduce as minimalistic as possible,
Yep.
Reduce everything you own, everything, to the point that you really have the exact amount of necessary stuff. And as I am a bit radical, I reduce to the point of having 2 bags.
Yep.
And nothing else. So that's way enough.
Yeah.
For me to it allows me to really travel constantly and not having to carry that much. I do carry quite a lot, but not that much. In terms of equipment, I have a bigger camera, definitely, but I do have one Zoom H6, 2 Zoom H2, and a few lavaliers.
And you connect the lavaliers to your Zoom H6, and that works for most every type of music you record.
I don't use them often. The lavaliers for what I'm recording now, more ritualistic, more community-based. The lavaliers are not very efficient there. You more need need more a full-on scope, a full-on recording of the ensemble. So I like the field recording aspect of things. I like when everything gets in. Are you okay?
Yeah. If possible, we could just sit right there. Yeah. So is the sound or the visual more important to you when you're making a video?
As long as basically the sound is clean, and as long as the sound is like the backbone, If you don't have a good sound, but it's like the ground. It's like what I'm stepping on is the sound quality. The sound quality have to be very good, so I can really stop thinking about it and just focus on the image. And the image, of course, the image leads my way to make filming. My films are very much a very direct, very subjective take on reality, and the way I frame is the way I dance with the camera is really based on the quality of the sound recording. I cannot think about the sound recording quality while I'm filming, even though I'm doing everything myself or most of the time. So I set up the mics quickly, and then if I feel it's going, okay, let's go with the flow, and then let's improvise.
Yeah. And has the way you dance, the way you feel the song and move around in the moment, has that changed a lot over the years, like your approach? Or is it
my
been
work?
the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my work has always been trying to refine that same gesture, So I often say that I've been making the same film for like 20 years. And it's very much, it's the truth actually. I keep repeating the same way. I don't really expand, especially as we're talking in terms of production or teams. So in a way, it's just still me with the camera in the end and a few microphones. and I think I just get better, just get better and better and better, trying to refine that same movement.
Yeah.
So it's the same movement, it's a continuation of the same movement from the very beginning in a way, I'm just trying to dance the dance better all the time.
But then what you are filming is very diverse and changing a lot over the years. So in a way, maybe your approach or style has stayed the same. Whereas maybe other filmmakers have focused more so on like getting really technical and having a big production and growing in that way. But maybe your growth is more focused on like working with other cultures and humans and types of music, right?
Yeah, exactly true. What's behind the camera did not change. What's in front always changed. So in that way, I just change topic and subjects and so on, even though I don't see them being very far from each other, If I am filming an experimental noise musician in Berlin, or if I'm filming like a village tribe in Uganda, I see many links. I always see different, the points, the coherence. There's a cohesive field behind all of those practices, I feel, and that's what I'm excited to research on. That there is this very interesting hidden form of I like to call it transcendence or transcendental research in the way that people create in the field of music or in the field of dance and so on. But my approach sort of like stays the same, definitely. Which is interesting that at the end I have for the past more than 10 years my aesthetic is very similar. And so that's why I do then the live cinema performances, which are remixing live all of this material, the visuals as well. But then what's interesting to me that it's so coherent that you can really switch from a place to another. You might go from Ethiopia, that's something I recorded 12 years ago, to something I recorded in La Villette in Paris 2 days ago. And you might not really see the difference in a way, There's such a similar approach. So it allows me to make more refined bridges, or in a way more, straight. There is really a way to, how do you go from that to that in the most subtle move, in a really more, in a very elegant way. And that's what I'm trying to do in the live cinema, So then you can really create something which is a trip, a very hypnotic trip for people.
What do you think it is, that connection between very different types of music? Is it only your approach to filming that type of dance or that type of music, or is there also similarities that you've found in vastly different?
No, there is many similarities. There are many similarities in between them. All those different forms of happening, of prayers, of simply performances. There is a lot of similarities, and they are present in many different layers. It might just be basically a similarity in terms of patterns, of colors, of a specific dress. Basically, some years ago, I was invited in Berlin to make an installation for the first time. And I did a three-screen installation. So on each screen you have a different ritual or performance from different part of the world. And all of it was played in a random mode. So I'm not choosing what goes with what, So it always creates new combinations. And I really had no idea before doing this if this would work in a sense, I had no idea how this would fit together. And as soon as I started to play the thing, I was blown away because suddenly there is those links, those almost mirror effect in between those images that I did not realize at all. I did not realize that the way they dance in that specific ceremony on an island in Peru is actually the same way the sort of like turn in that specific Iraqi, style source form of Sufism, let's say. And you're like, how strange, you know? So you could just see that as like different cultural artifacts that by chance are basically looking more or less like similar. But I'm not really interested in culture, to be honest with you. And I'm interested in like the creative proposal of a community over the years and how this basically is made of so many stories, so many different paths, so many different lines. Of course, I'm not researching for like something truly traditional or pure, because I don't believe this simply exists as it is. I'm interested in the impurity of all those like encounters, in a sense that what made them what they are at the moment I meet them is actually a very complex web of influences. And my way to look at them sort of like maybe brings some of those elements to the front. But this is not a scientific research per se, it's a very subjective research as well, you know? It's a poetic research on like trying to understand maybe reality on a different level, you know? Yeah. But again, it's not a cultural research, I believe. In a sense, some people are doing that, you know? Some people are putting things clear. Yeah. Some people are writing stories, some people are explaining. And a lot of people are obsessed by the context, you know, to give a context to this. I guess I take the other direction. I'm like, what happens if we decontextualize our ways to connect with music, with the divine and so on? What if you decontextualize them and what you are offered with is a very different form of reality? It's a very different, it's a very, really, basically I'm trying to understand what are the alternative storytellings about reality, because I believe that we live in a society which has been slowly getting rid of them, you know, and that domination of a very materialistic vision on reality is not something I'm interested much about, you know. So I'm just interested in like how do we revive another understanding of basically what it means to live together, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of. It's a funny little research I'm doing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And how have all these experiences and travels affected you, the people you've met? How much
and everything.
do you change maybe when you go to a different country?
Well, I guess you adapt yourself quickly, much more quickly. To put it simply, there's I was talking with some friends of mine recently who are also deep travelers, in the sense that they really have been traveling to a point that we came to the same conclusions. When you start to travel, what you see is the difference in the other, you know. You're amazed by how unique this or that is, you know. But if you travel a bit deeper or a bit longer, what you do not see is not anymore the differences. What you see is actually the similarities. And they emerge. So slowly the similarities are going to emerge in terms of behaviors, colors, patterns, movements. And that's, I'm trying to focus on that. And obviously my body has evolved a lot. My mind, probably, my ideas, very probably. But I think the more interesting how the body changed because of having so many experiences in so many different situations. So I do believe you accumulate that knowledge without even being conscious about it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you see more similarities than differences, because maybe when you initially go somewhere, it can appear, you can have like culture shock and be surprised at how vastly different that area of the world is. But maybe when you actually meet the people that are there, is that when you realize that like behind all of the influence of that where they live? That they're just humans, just like everyone else. Is that an aspect of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
On some level, we're all going through the same stuff.
Very much. It's the same story repeating itself with a slight difference every time. But even the way that we build our community, even the way that I meet people, I realize that I keep meeting the same people, more or less. You know, you keep meeting the same energies everywhere you go. So at some point, it gets very interesting about this. In a sense, you recognize the other more easily. Maybe that's what happens after a while, you know?
I've noticed that too. I think in the people that I've met, do you think you meet the same energies? You meet people who are similar to you, or people that in some way you're attracted to, like that type of human, and you find that all over the place? Is it like a reflection of yourself, maybe? Or is it something that you're just like attracted to?
Both, I guess. You know, obviously. I mean, you are very responsible about the people you meet. So I feel very autonomous in that, and obviously, I am drawn towards a very specific, maybe, form of energy.
Yeah.
But then, what I mean more is that. Anywhere I go, you sort of like see the same patterns, forms of behaviors happening in people, you know?
Yeah.
Okay? So, that's what I've been, excited about. Especially recently, in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
I think I went so far into my own travels and so on that you start to lose your mind, but it's a very good thing sometimes, you know. By losing your mind, you sort of like discover other hidden corners on reality, you know. And so reality becomes a bit more magical, much more magical. And I think that's what, if there's something I'm excited about, is to re-enchant reality nowadays, you know. I think we've been damaging very much our environment, the planet, our human relationships, interactions, and so on. And trying to re-enchant this in different ways. And I try to do it in my own little way, with my own little tool. It's a very interesting approach, you know. It's sort of like we try to reopen reality by, how could I say? It's much more interesting that what reality is much more interesting than what we think about most of the time. I was talking about film cinema and especially fiction cinema. It's something I'm not at all attracted towards. Why would I write about reality? Why would I try to write a story which comes sort of like from my mind when there's just so many stories going on? You have just to open your eyes on reality and to see that those stories are already there. There's a very high potential of many different narratives constantly happening, you know.
Yeah.
So that if you want to follow one of those threads, just pull that thread and go with it. And then you will see that actually it does tell a very interesting story. It's very fascinating.
It is fascinating. So, in that, is it maybe less personal and it's more about discovering those stories out in the world, like trying to make it be less about your own creative desire maybe and more so about
it works together though, I think, you know. I mean, the exterior is a reflection of your own state of mind. This is actually a very simple idea which is absolutely not integrated in the way we live. But this is an idea which basically that what you are going through is basically made a lot on your own conscious and unconscious art. This is basically this is like I think a recognition of the creative magic in reality. So you build reality as much as reality builds you, and that interaction is very fruitful for any creative mind. You know. So if you find that right spot, it gets very funny.
Cool. So has it been like continually inspiring as you keep creating? Are you continually inspired as you meet more people, you travel more, you make more videos? Is it never ending?
For me, the fact of making films is really a way to activate reality, or to intensify for a short period of time. You intensify an aspect of society. Let's say that I'm traveling to Morocco tomorrow. I'm probably gonna like meet a lot of musicians and ceremonies and so on. But my desire to make a film is really about making that relationship a bit more intense.
With the people you're meeting?
Yeah, with the people you meet. Definitely.
And so when you're with those people, do you try to also make the interaction be about like actually connecting with that person too? Like not it just being like about the camera and recording the song. Like, do you try to get to know these people too, or?
Of course, but the question is then the question is like, what is knowledge? You know, is knowing. There's also this like understanding in our mind that the longer you will spend in a community, the more you will know the community and so on. It's not as simple actually. It's not really the case in my own experience. In that sense, there's different levels of what is that person in front of you, you know?
That's true.
So there's where do you want to tap, you know? What do you want to... In a sense, I try to maintain a mysterious relationship with reality all the time.
Yeah.
That feeds into my own form of cinema. The films I make are based on a very impromptu, very improvised, very intuitive relationship. If I do spend 2 weeks in a village before, let's say, pulling out the camera, the intuitivity is gone because my brain will start to project many images. I will basically end up in a very much more intellectual relationship with the subject. If I want to avoid that intellectual relationship, I have to be physically very strong, very direct, and I like to engage the people I'm filming very quickly. Like, okay, let's dance that dance, because I believe in the moment of the performance with such musicians or priests or basically, you know, in all directions. In that moment of interaction, there is something which goes through, which is not an intellectual relationship. It's a very deep form of being with the other, where we're actually connecting there in that space. And I love that connection. I think there's something very, very, very true, very powerful about this, you know? So is this knowledge? Is this knowing someone? I would say that's a pretty deep experience.
Yeah, like a shared moment.
Yeah,
shared
to share.
Moment making something with someone else, especially with like a musician who's expressing themselves in a way that, like, something that's really meaningful to them, and you're trying to capture that exact feeling or sensation. You're meeting them there in that moment. So maybe that is one way, like a snapshot of getting to know someone, even though there's no like intellectual conversation going on between that person. It's like more so like a feeling that you're capturing.
Yes, definitely, and I think that there is this Western form of looking at reality which is extremely intellectual based. When you do end up in many parts of the world, in small communities which are maybe, I would maybe end up there because I'm interested in that specific rhythm they have to call the spirits, to get into trance and so on. We're not talking about intellectual people in the same sense, you know. We don't have the same background in terms of education and especially in terms of framing reality intellectually. So I would say this is like a very post-colonial approach to kind of bring the same way of looking at reality and try to understand it with an intellectual perspective. I'm much more interested. I mean, the way I film is much more inspired by the trance itself than by a form of cinematographic analysis that I would have learned in a school. My way of relating to reality is actually a form of like trance of my own body with the camera and so on. So I think this is much more, let's say, connected with the process of the performance or the ritual or the prayer or the magic, to put it simply, you know. So I'm trying to not apply an intellectual approach to something which is actually trying to avoid the intellect on many ways, you know. We could talk longer about this idea, but I think to me the divine manifests in a non-intellectual frame, you know. That's actually so obvious when you start to really dig into this, you know. It's about abandoning your thoughts, abandoning your ideas, abandoning your perspective. It's about non-projecting, it's about improvising, it's about being in the present moment, which that's where happens that connection, you know. So I'm trying to really avoid any intellectual approach in that specific moment of filming with people.
Amazing.
Because it would get in the way.
Yeah, and I'm guessing when you first started making videos, these kinds of videos, at least it was like a natural progression that you made them that way. Is that kind of how it happened? Like,
Sorry, say again?
Like when you first maybe started doing videos with the blogothèque, was it a super thought out thing? Like did you like see
it was an intuition that we had of like when we started the blogothèque, my desire was to use the tools that we have in a very DIY, very lo-fi way, okay? Nowadays, and it was really basically 2000, I don't know, 6, 7. So that moment, we really started to have small and really good digital cameras. And I was really interested in that lo-fi approach. What can I do with such little equipment, which are suddenly looking fucking amazing, actually. You can do a lot with so little. And so for me, it was my way to kind of like understand how can we make this kind of, I mean, my influences in cinema are very clearly marked around the 70s, you know. We're talking about Tarkovsky, we're talking about this new wave of American cinema, especially. I'm not that much marked by French cinema, I realize. I'm much more interested in like more also formal experimentations, or Miklos Jankso, for example, a fantastic cineast from a filmmaker from Hungary, who did in the 70s some marvelous films and so on. Anyway, so my influences do come from a pretty high-end or well-produced form of cinema, which at the time, in that specific time between the end of the 60s and the early 80s, there was a lot of money for very crazy projects. You would have Jodorowsky in that, you would have so many masterpieces in that time. And then obviously, if I'm looking to make such a cinema in the early 2000s, I'm fucked because the values have changed, especially in the film business. It's impossible to produce such an epic scale of weird stuff, you know? And so I decided to basically go for a very lo-fi approach, which still maintains this idea of the long shot, of the plan séquence, for example. And so I decided to develop from the beginning of the blogothèque that idea of like, how do I film music in one long shot, dancing, you know? But that was a very simple idea, you know? And there was no more idea behind that, really, you know, or they were in the unconscious. Of course, unconsciously, more or less unconsciously, there was a desire to break down the barrier or the hierarchies in between the musicians and the audience. Of course, if you bring them in the middle of the street, you basically create a zone where everything can happen, you know, where anything can interact, and so the background would be as important for me as the foreground. So and that is, let's say, a normal evolution of my anarchist ideas, you know, because I am a complete anarchist in terms of like looking at reality, you know. Pardon? Un tabac? Je vais trouver un tabac. Il y en a pas mal dans le coin, mais alors où exactement, cher ami? Attends, laisse-moi réfléchir.
Vous fumez pas?
J'ai fumé, j'habite dans ce quartier, où est-ce que j'allais acheter? Là, la première rue à droite. Première rue à droite, vers le fin de la rue, c'est juste à gauche, tu verras, il y a un tabac. Il est là. Anyway, cool.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Ah
It's
non,
very
it's a pleasure, mon ami.
fascinating.
No, it's a
I
pleasure.
know you probably have.
Yeah, you have
things
anything
to do.
coming, actually.
But, that was a good little chat. If you want, we can chat a little bit longer.
Yeah, but what about if we walk around? Do you want to still record maybe some sound, or I don't know?